I'm a world-class banquet chef, but to help my daughter's startup, I quit my $80,000 a month job to run her Hunan restaurant's kitchen. Because my cooking was so good, the place became famous across the region. But one night, my apprentice made me a simple plate of peanuts. My son-in-law saw them and his face soured, so I explained my apprentice paid for them out of pocket and we could check the security footage. He ignored me completely, turned to my daughter, and sneered, "You watch out for outsiders, but the real thief is already in the house." My daughter looked embarrassed and said, "Dad loves them, and it's just a plate of peanuts. He didn't eat anything else." But my mother-in-law snapped, "You can't justify it like that. We're a small business, and we can't have people just grabbing whatever they want." She continued, "Today it's peanuts, but tomorrow others will follow his lead, and the whole place will fall into chaos. You married my son, so think about our family's interests, and if he can't follow the rules, just find another chef, right?" My daughter looked at me, mortified, and said, "Dad, why don't you just apologize to everyone? It's a tiny thing, let's just settle it." Seeing that even my own daughter didn't believe me, I slammed my chopsticks down and shouted, "I quit. Listen to your mother-in-law and find someone else." As I pulled off my chef's hat, my daughter, Zinin, looked at me with reproach and asked, "Dad, do you really have to make things so hard for me?" My heart went cold as I realized they were treating me like some errand boy. I'm a master banquet chef trapped in this hole, taking only $1,000 a month for expenses while they refuse to buy quality ingredients. I spend over $10,000 a month of my own money to buy supplies and even cover my apprentice's wages because his pay is so pathetic. When the kitchen staff threatened to strike, I was the one who paid them under the table to keep things quiet. Is that not thinking of her? My son-in-law, Jianyi, made a face and started up again. He used that sarcastic tone and said, "Look at you, making a mistake and then throwing a tantrum because you can't take criticism. You're getting stubborn." Exactly, my mother-in-law chimed in. She jumped in to add that quitting over a few words was dramatic and showed I had no sense of responsibility. I knew a chef in this town makes $8,000 minimum, and a master like me from Sanjing would cost $20,000. Her threat to replace me was a joke. They thought they could control me, but I don't buy their stories. I huffed and told them, "I've lived my whole life as an honest man. I've never been insulted like this. Find someone else to run this kitchen. I'm going back where I came from. I'm not here to serve people like you." Beside me, my apprentice jumped in to defend me. "Master always taught me never to take a single thing from the restaurant," he said. "I bought those peanuts with my own money. Check the cameras if you don't believe me." But the moment he finished speaking, Jianyi glared him down. "Who asked for your opinion?" he snapped. "You're just taking advantage of the broken camera to lie." My mother-in-law stared at me and said, "It's not a big deal. Just listen to your daughter and admit your mistake. Why keep lying? Honestly, what a nuisance," she added. My apprentice was left speechless, and I felt a deep wave of humiliation. I was shaking with rage. I gritted my teeth, my voice cracking as I spoke. "Tell me, do you really think I can't afford a plate of peanuts?" I demanded. "I am Zenin's father. Even if I had eaten them, don't I deserve that much?" I questioned them over and over, while Jianyi and his mother grew furious. I looked at Zenin, waiting for her to say something. After all, I'm her father. I fed her, clothed her, and raised her so she never wanted for anything. I thought she would finally take my side, but she just frowned and started lecturing me. "Dad, stop making a fool of yourself. If you aren't embarrassed, I am," she said. I doubled over in pain, and seeing this, my apprentice let out a panicked scream. "Master is having a heart attack. Quick, someone help." But Zenin and the others just stood there with cold, indifferent eyes. "You'd rather fake an illness than apologize?" my mother-in-law sneered. "How stubborn can you be? Stop putting on this pathetic theater performance." Jianyi joined in, shouting that Zenin was right and I was just being difficult. "Competition is hard enough this year. If you start with these tricks, how will the restaurant survive?" Zenin sighed and told me to stop making a scene and just get up. "Get to the kitchen. We have important clients coming for lunch," she ordered. "Cook a good meal, and I'll consider the peanut matter settled." I'm choosing to forget it. Their arrogance made my blood boil. They acted like they were doing me a favor by letting me work. I turned pale as a cold sweat began to pour down my forehead. "Are you all crazy? You really think I'm faking this?" my apprentice yelled. He rushed over to support me, but Jianyi stepped in and blocked his path. "There are people watching outside. Don't ruin the business," Jianyi said coldly. My mother-in-law chimed in, asking who taught him such bad habits and lies. Zenin didn't even look at me. She just pointed a finger at my apprentice's face. With a dismissive snort, she told him, "You're fired. Go back to wherever you came from." The sheer injustice of it all hit me like a physical blow, and the world went black. When I finally woke up, I was in a hospital bed with only my apprentice by my side. My older brother, Mato, stood there with his hands behind his back. "How much longer are you going to lie there? Stop faking it. Why fight with your own daughter? We elders should look out for the young." I thought he came to comfort me, considering I always gave him the best food and drink growing up. When he got into gambling later in life, I was the one who paid off his debts. Since he was a bachelor, I worried about him constantly. I made sure he never went hungry and always brought him meals. He should know my character better than anyone, yet he blamed me while ignoring my drip. He looked at me like a stranger and called me a manipulator. "This is all an act," my brother sneered, shattering my hope for a united family. I realized then that my family was nothing but a disaster. There was a malicious glint in his eyes, and I knew I had trusted the wrong person again. All the relatives are saying you're a fraud who tried to steal a plate of peanuts from Zenin. Zenin had clearly been busy spreading rumors to everyone we knew. Since she couldn't convince you, she asked the family for help, and they sent me. My brother shrugged and asked how an old man like me would survive alone. Your daughter and son-in-law treat you well. You should be grateful and stop the gossip. He warned that if I turned my back on them, no one would care for me in my old age. I never imagined my own daughter would drag my name through the mud like this. Heartbroken but determined, I headed back to the restaurant. I wasn't just going to leave. Small town, big hell, I'm done with this, and I'm done with this life. As for who will care for me when I'm old, worst case, I'll go to a nursing home. My brother turned pale when he heard that, stammering that I was overreacting over a plate of peanuts. I turned my back on him and stopped listening. If it was just peanuts, why was it enough to land a father in the hospital? You're just a stubborn old fool, my brother spat before walking out. Once he was gone, my apprentice finally spoke up, asking me to be his head chef. I had almost forgotten that he was the one who invited me to the restaurant in the first place. He pulled out a contract and handed it to me. I took it and looked it over. My eyelid began to twitch when I saw the terms. He was offering me 70% of the shares. A contract like this probably didn't exist anywhere else in the world. Who ever heard of an owner giving their cook such a massive stake in the business? He explained that he and his father returned from abroad specifically to learn from my reputation. I can't stand by and watch you suffer, he said, promising to care for me like a godfather. He even put a clause in the contract stating he would look after me until my final days. I already knew this apprentice was talented, but I could see now that he possessed a character that was truly extraordinary. He had more integrity in his pinky than my daughter and son-in-law had in their entire bodies. I was moved to silence, and he told me to take my time before Zenin showed up the next day. The moment Zenin walked into the room, she frowned and spoke up. Yesterday's client wasn't satisfied at all. I told him to come back in 7 days. Hurry up and come help me, she said, lunging forward to grab my arm. She didn't even bother to look at the state I was in. I'm sick. Hire a new chef, I told her. Seeing she didn't have the slightest intention of apologizing, I felt a wave of pure disappointment. Actually, we already hired a new chef. My mother-in-law recommended him. So this time, I just need you to be the kitchen assistant. With 2 people missing in the kitchen, we just can't keep up. You have experience. Someone like you is worth 2 workers, Zenin said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Hearing that made my blood boil. They wanted me back just to use me as a low-level helper? I was a state banquet chef. Since when do I play second fiddle to anyone? This wasn't just an insult. It was trampling on my professional pride. Seeing my face, Zenin started complaining. Dad, we already compromised by letting you be the assistant. Why can't you just be satisfied? Do you have to destroy the whole family to be happy? If you weren't my father, I wouldn't even bother with you. Looking at that pitying gaze of hers, I clenched my fists until they popped. I turned my head away and decided to ignore her completely. Zenin used to be so filial and understanding. How had she become so cruel? It was obvious she thought the new chef was incredible and didn't care about me anymore. Her attitude had completely shifted, and I felt a cold shiver run through my heart. I gritted my teeth and told her, fine, it's just 20,000. I'll pay you. I told her that from now on, we would each go our separate ways. Zenin agreed immediately, saying, perfect, I just hope you don't regret it. After she got the money, Zenin turned around and walked out without a second look. The more I thought about it, the more frustrated I became until I couldn't take it anymore. I started coughing violently, and the monitor beside my bed began to wail. My apprentice rushed to call a doctor, and they barely managed to stabilize me. Later, some old colleagues from the kitchen added me to a small group chat. They sent me a video that made my stomach turn. On the screen, Zenin was smiling as she gave the good news to Jinswa and her mother-in-law. I got the money back, she bragged. He looked fine, just throwing a little tantrum. You're incredible, my love, Jinswa said, pulling Zenin into a hug. Now we just have to handle that one client's meal, and our business is set. The mother-in-law gave Zenin a big thumbs up before patting her own chest. Don't worry, she assured them. The chef I hired is professional and completely reliable. He can cook anything. I guarantee the client will be more than satisfied. Watching that family of 3 celebrate so happily, I lost every shred of hope I had left. I looked at my apprentice and whispered, I accept your proposal. 7 days later, the VIP guest arrived right on time at the St. Quentin restaurant. Under the new chef's direction, the aromatic dishes began arriving at the table one by one. Jinswa poured a glass of wine for the millionaire with a flirtatious smile. Zenin and her mother-in-law traded looks, already laughing at the massive success they imagined. The millionaire picked up a piece of the circled pork. He slowly brought it to his mouth. Immediately, he frowned and said, the flavor is too strong, it's poorly prepared. Zenin, Jinswa, and the mother-in-law froze, their smiles turning pale as paper. Zenin was the first to react, stammering, well, anyone can make a mistake. Why not try something else? For example, this steamed fish. It's his specialty. I guarantee you'll like it, she said, as the guest reached for the plate. He took a piece of the fish and tasted it. He dropped his chopsticks and snapped. The fish isn't fresh. I gave you 7 days. And this is what you prepare. Cold sweat began to pour down the faces of all 3 women. But there are so many more dishes. Zenin said, trying to summon her courage one last time. I'm sure you'll like one of them. But the guest's gaze turned ice cold as he stood up and said, I'm not eating another bite. This place still has a long way to go. With that, he turned around and left for the city. Zenin stood there in total shock, then whipped around toward her mother-in-law. She demanded, "I thought you said this chef was reliable and talented? What the hell was that? Everyone says his cooking is delicious. But you put a chef who's never handled a luxury banquet in front of such an important guest." Jinzua shot a glare at Zenin and snapped, "Enough, my mother didn't do it on purpose." Watching them, Zenin felt a wave of helplessness, the exact same way I felt back then. As soon as the VIP guest got into his car, he received a phone call. It was an old friend saying, "I know why the food at that restaurant was so terrible. They fired the head chef, and now he's at the new Zhang restaurant. You have to try it." The guest didn't hesitate for a second and headed straight to my apprentice's new place. The first dish they served him was a simple tofu and Chinese cabbage soup. His friend kept recommending it, calling it the best soup he'd ever tasted in his life. "Is it really that good?" The millionaire looked at him with skepticism, picked up his spoon, and took a sip. His eyes lit up instantly, and without a word, he started eating like a man possessed. He finished a second bowl, then a third. Even though there were only two of them, they emptied the entire tureen in a heartbeat. The guest gave a thumbs up and raved, "This is incredible. The flavor is so fresh and pure." My apprentice, Rodrigo, just laughed and said, This is just the beginning." Just like at St. Quentin, we served a table overflowing with masterclass dishes. I personally prepared all the main courses. My apprentice handled the rest, of course, under my direct supervision. The client couldn't stop singing our praises and insisted on asking for a favor. He wanted to meet me, the chef, and asked for the recipes to several dishes. I answered everything without holding back a single secret. This impressed the tycoon so much that he hired me for his family's banquet. On the day of the event, the guest list was packed with VIPs and TV crews filming everything. Every single guest on camera was raving that the food was exquisite. During dinner, the host gave me a special introduction to the entire crowd. Thanks to that, I ended up on the local news that very same day. Sun Qingning was scrolling through her phone when she saw me and jumped out of her seat. Jinzua, Zenin, and the mother-in-law crowded around the screen in a panic. They watched that VIP shower me with compliments while celebrities applauded for me. They stared with their eyes wide open, completely speechless. First, they felt a wave of regret and rage, but then they turned indignant. How dare Dad do this? Partnering with his apprentice to open a rival restaurant. Our business was already struggling. We're family. We should have talked it out calmly. Sun Qingming sighed, while the mother-in-law nodded along in agreement. She went back to investigate that plate of peanuts and found out the apprentice bought them himself. My dad has such an explosive temper. He couldn't handle the humiliation. Should we beg him to come back? Jinzwan nodded eagerly. Your dad is stubborn, but his cooking is a gold mine. We can't let money walk away. Sun Qingming called me immediately. Dad, how can you help strangers instead of your own daughter? The restaurant is going bankrupt. I didn't give her a kind answer. The truth is, I'm not your dad anymore. Don't forget what we said, everyone for themselves. Is it really that serious? Are you going to hold a grudge forever over something so stupid? Sun Qingming's voice suddenly cracked. Can we talk in person? I'll pay you 4,000 a month, but please, come back and help us. The whole family is counting on you. If the restaurant fails, we're finished. Your grandson is only in middle school. What's he going to do? The more she talked, the harder she cried. Tears always got to me more than shouting ever could. I can't stand seeing people cry. Memories of Sun Qingming as a little girl flooded back. Seeing my silence, she pushed even harder. Dad, let's talk in person. Just see how we're doing. If you don't like what you see, you can just turn around and leave. What do you say? I hesitated for a long time, but finally, I agreed. We set a meeting for tonight at 9 sharp. I told my apprentice about it. I thought he'd object, but to my surprise, he didn't have a problem with it at all. He said he'd support whatever I decided and even drove me to the restaurant. I arrived 30 minutes early and saw the door was ajar. Just as I was about to walk in, I heard Sun Qingming's voice. She was laughing with a smug, self-satisfied tone. Just leave it to me. Ever since I was a kid, my dad always folds the second I start crying. He's definitely staying. She said it with such absolute confidence. She knew exactly how to pull my heartstrings to get what she wanted. It was despicable. Her mother passed away when she was tiny, so I always kept her on a pedestal. I lived in constant fear that she wouldn't have a good life. Good daughter-in-law, everything depends on you. My mother-in-law exclaimed, raising her voice in excitement. She gave a thumbs up in approval. Then Jinzu added, as soon as your dad gets back, I'm sticking to him to learn his recipes so we don't have to deal with his moods anymore. Hearing those words sent a cold shiver straight through my body. To make it worse, Sun Qingming nodded in agreement before all three of them burst out laughing. I couldn't take it. I shoved the door open in a rage, and the laughter stopped instantly. The three of them spun around to look at me, shock written all over their faces. She never imagined it. She never thought that I, the man who is always exactly on time, would show up early tonight. Dad, when did you get here? Come in, sit down, Sun Qingming called out, her voice dripping with guilt. Stop pretending. I heard everything you were just saying. I clenched my fists and glared at her. I wasn't finished. What did I do in a past life to deserve a daughter as heartless as you? Sun Qingming's face crumpled immediately. Jianzhu finally dropped the act and snapped. Qingming is your only daughter. How can you talk to her like that? Besides, as her father, it's your obligation to do everything you can for her. Exactly, my mother-in-law chimed in. Even your own brother says you're acting wrong. I gritted my teeth and replied, I've already done more than enough. You're the ones crossing the line. Sun Qingming took a deep breath and looked at me. Dad, do you really prefer helping strangers over your own daughter? That's right, I said. And what if I do? If I'm the victim here, then I worked myself to the bone for her and even paid out of my own pocket to help her. She was the one who disrespected me first and disowned me as her father, yet somehow I'm the one at fault. Fine, if that's how it is, we'll see who wins this. A strange, complex glint flashed in Sun Qingming's eyes. I didn't know what she was planning, but I didn't want to stay another second. I turned around and left with my apprentice. The next morning, my name hit the local headlines again, but this time, it wasn't for anything good. Sun Qingming had gone to the media to leak that I was biased and preferred helping strangers over my own daughter. She claimed they only took me in out of pity because I was lonely and helpless. She even lied, saying they gave me allowance money every month while I showed zero gratitude. To top it off, she claimed I brought my apprentice along just to sabotage her restaurant's business. She and Jianzhu's mother sobbed in front of the cameras, listing all my supposed crimes. They even challenged me to go on a televised mediation program to confront them. Jianzhu looked so pathetic that he immediately won over the hearts of the internet. The comment sections were flooded with hostile messages directed at me. My apprentice and the kitchen staff tried to tell the truth, but their voices were buried instantly. My apprentice's restaurant, once packed and lively, was now only visited by people looking to gossip. It was killing the business. Both my apprentice and I started getting harassing calls and messages from strangers. In the past, I probably would have exploded with rage at this betrayal. But after everything my daughter put me through, my mind was ironically clearer than ever. I contacted an old client for a favor and accepted the TV invitation to settle this once and for all. Right then, Sun Qingming called me. Dad, now that things are like this, have you thought it over? She asked, her voice sounding smug. I hung up the phone, blocked her number, and deleted her contact. Shortly after, the richest man in the city came to the restaurant in person and said, Chef's son, I heard about your situation. If there's anything I can do to help, don't hesitate to tell me. I thanked him first, and then I gave him my answer. Since Sun Qingming and those other two want me to face them on TV, then I'll go. But first, I need to prepare. I hope you can help me investigate a few things. I wrote everything down on a piece of paper and handed it over. My client looked at the list and nodded. He guaranteed me with absolute certainty that he would have it all ready. He told me it would only take 2 days. Only then did I ask my apprentice to start a live stream to announce that I would participate in the program to confront Sun Qingming in front of the whole world. When she found out, Sun Qingming started playing the victim online again, winning over the sympathy of the public. The comment sections were once again filled with offensive insults directed at me, but I didn't respond or show my face even once. I simply prepared in silence. It wasn't until the day the program started that I finally appeared on stage. Jianzhu saw me. He was the first to speak, saying, Dad, we're all family. Why did you have to take things to this extreme in front of an audience? He started treating me with a fake, formal respect. Before, he always spoke to me like I was beneath him. What a hypocrite. Jianzhu's mother chimed in too. At your age, why all this scandal? We've lived more than half our lives. Isn't it all so our children can have a good life? Between father and daughter, there are no grudges. That should last. As long as you're willing to apologize, we can start over with a clean slate. Sun Qingming nodded with teary eyes and said, Dad, we can live our lives in peace. Everyone in the audience began praising them for being so reasonable. They clearly thought that this time, I would finally give in. But my attitude was ice cold. I sat down right in front of them, and the insults started raining down immediately. They called me a senile old man and an ungrateful wretch. They said I didn't value what I had, while Sun Qingming and the other two sat there in silence. The host started the program and asked me bluntly about the accusations Sun Qingming made. Are they true? He asked, and I immediately shook my head. They're nothing but lies, I replied, and I have the proof. I explained that my apprentice bought and cooked those peanuts himself and that the street cameras had the footage. The screen lit up showing my apprentice buying the ingredients, even the oil and salt, proving my story. Everyone turned to look at Sun Qingming and her group. Their smug smiles had completely vanished. They turned pale, but Jianzhu recovered from the shock and spoke up quickly. Even if we were wrong then, there's no need to make such a scandal over a tiny mistake. His mother nodded repeatedly, adding, We're family, we can settle this by talking. My daughter pleaded, Dad, can't our bond overcome a small misunderstanding? And the audience seemed to agree. But a second later, my apprentice and the kitchen staff burst into the studio. They're lying, my apprentice shouted. They pressured the master to take the blame, no matter what we said. That's right, we're witnesses, they cried out as soon as he finished speaking. Another video appeared on the screen, showing Sun Qingming and the others cornering me. One of my assistants had recorded the entire confrontation in secret. In the footage, I was clutching my chest in visible pain while they just stood there. They didn't lift a finger to help me, and the audience erupted in an uproar. Public opinion shifted in a heartbeat as the crowd turned their fury on Sun Qingming and her group. I seized the moment and told everyone that while I was hospitalized, Sun Qingming showed up, but only to demand I pay back every cent she spent on my living expenses over the last 2 years. That's a lie. I never did that. Sun Qingming shrieked back immediately. I didn't say a word. I just reached into my pocket. I pulled out a recorder and pressed play. Sun Qingming turned as white as a sheet, trembling from head to toe, unable to deny her own voice. I looked her in the eye and said, "You claimed you'd care for me, but you just wanted a free chef." Then Jinzu chimed in, sneering. "And when exactly did you ever spend a dime of your own?" He was desperately trying to regain some ground, but I didn't even have to answer him. Before I could open my mouth, my apprentice and the kitchen staff cut him off. "Your mother was a cheapskate," they shouted. "She bought rotten ingredients, so the master used his own savings to buy fresh ones for the guests. Without your father, that restaurant is nothing. It would have gone bankrupt a long time ago." Every word was a physical blow to Jinzu and Sun Qingming. They had no idea. I had kept it a secret so my in-laws wouldn't think I was stingy, and because I wanted to help my daughter. Though even if I had told them, they wouldn't have been grateful. Then, several more people entered the studio. They were the former chefs who used to work there, ready to expose how they were treated. They exposed how the ingredients were cheap and the staff was spread too thin. Every word was a nail in the coffin for Sun Qingming and her group. Her mother grew so dizzy from the shock that the staff had to rush over. They sat her down to rest while Sun Qingming and Jinzu stood there, paralyzed. Suddenly, they both dropped to their knees, begging for my forgiveness through tears. "You think I don't know you already investigated all of this?" I asked coldly. "You knew the truth the whole time, yet you chose to betray me anyway." Sun Qingming froze, sobbing that she'd be ruined if I abandoned her now. Jinzu clung to my leg like a stray dog, pleading for just one more chance. They were drowning in regret, finally realizing the weight of what they'd done. If they had treated me with even a shred of decency, the restaurant would be thriving. But my heart was already dead to them. I turned my back and walked away. They tried to chase after me, but the angry crowd blocked their path. The audience swarmed them, shouting down their excuses and pointing fingers. Sun Qingming kept screaming my name, but I didn't look back once. The restaurant eventually collapsed under their poor management, leaving their lives in shambles. Months later, Sun Qingming sent me a message begging to see me one last time. I hesitated for a long time, but eventually, I agreed to meet at a small tea house. She looked skeletal, with dark circles under her eyes and all her spark gone. The moment she saw me, she choked out the word "Dad" and burst into tears. I looked at her and poured a cup of tea. "I know I messed up, Dad," she whispered with her head down and a raspy voice. I just stared at her. I remembered when she was little and used to fall asleep on my back. I remembered her mother asking me to raise her well before she passed away. "Qingming, I never truly hated you," I sighed, "but there are paths you must walk alone. Go home and try to live a good life," I told her as she nodded through her tears. She asked if I would ever come back, but I simply shook my head. I told her she could visit the new restaurant to eat whenever she wanted. We were still father and daughter, but the past had to stay in the past. Eventually, she found a stable job at a university. She started living a quiet life and called me on holidays to check in. We weren't as close as we once were, but at least we weren't enemies anymore. The restaurant my apprentice and I built became a landmark in the city. My apprentice treats me like real family, calling me both his master and his godfather. Sometimes, after closing, I sit alone in the kitchen and stare at the equipment. I was lost in thought looking at the pots and pans until my apprentice snapped me out of it. I told him I was just remembering the old days, and he told me not to look back. "You have me now," he said, and I couldn't help but smile and nod. I don't hold grudges anymore. I just hope my days ahead stay as peaceful as this. I live a quiet life now, occasionally frying up some peanuts to enjoy slowly with a drink. The flavor is the same, but I feel different, finally understanding the sweet and bitter notes of life. Every single one of those flavors is right here, in this very moment.